All right, so let's talk about progress ring. So if you haven't been following the show lately, we've been talking about this thing. Jason sort of created a progress ring module that allows you to add a progress ring to your games or apps or your gaps using one line of code. And so, Jason, how did this thing come about, and what are your plans for it? And
Sure.
can you just
Well,
tell us?
it got started, I don't know, probably 8 months ago or so. A weekend I was working on an app that you've kindly mentioned in previous shows called Social Poetry, which went through a phase where it needed to download a whole bunch of data from Facebook. And so I needed something to, let the user know that something's going on, your app hasn't frozen or crashed, hang tight. And so I sort of sat down and thought, oh, it'd be nice to have it in a ring shape. So I sat down and sort of started tinkering with it. Got it to a place where it worked, but it wasn't really polished or where I wanted it to be, and sort of put it aside, used the default Corona Labs widget progress bar. Just because I could just plug it in, it worked, it looked nice, and it sat there. And then I was trolling the forums one day, and somebody posted a topic and said, oh, I'd really like to do this. Does anybody have any code? And I thought, oh, I've got that. Let me polish it. Let me get it to the point where it's shareable to the one line of code thing, which is what I like to do with any module that I'm going to put out. I really like to try and make it as easy to use as an official Corona Labs API, just because otherwise, why am I sharing it? So sat down, promised it. I said, give me a day or two. Fast forward 2 weeks when when I finally get around to posting it. And in the middle of those 2 weeks, and I will say this, I think there's a link on my website to the original forum post. I am fond of my own solution, and I think it's great, and I really appreciate that you've taken the time to feature it and have me on here. But there are other ways of achieving this, and Matt Webster, who is awesome and contributes lots of great code under the name Horsebury on the blog and on the forums, had a different way of doing it. It's a little more roll it yourself. You'd have to copy his code and change parameters, so it's not set up like mine where you just require it in and call a function. But it works great, and my module, which runs 200 to 300 lines, is not nearly as compact as his. So go check that out if you're into that. But anyway, so 2 weeks while he was doing that in the span of an afternoon, I finally got it ready. I put it up on the site, and it seemed to be popular with some people. I think some people were able to use it, which is great. I think you featuring it here on the Hangouts has driven a little bit of traffic to my site, so thank you. And it's still a work in progress in my mind, and we can get to some of the areas that I've discovered in the intervening weeks that I think could use some extra loving. But in the original version, there was a bug. If you had any sort of config.lua file, it got all screwed up, and that's because when I was modularizing, I was just using the most basic, project I could, just a main.lua and my module. Thankfully, somebody posted that. I fixed it. I plugged it in, and now it's just up there, and people are downloading it. So we can walk through it. You guide me a little bit here, because I don't know if I'm going to be too verbose or not verbose.
Well, first of all, I keep Stephen, I apologize. I keep muting you. You can unmute yourself if you like. There's a little bit of background noise there, and a little bit of, I think there's a bird.
Somebody has a bird. We got a bird and a cat.
Yeah. I don't think.
But I know that no. This is Stephen. Stephen's over there. But Stephen, I know that Jason had said that you were involved in some of that. So, Jason, what were you able to pull from Stephen?
Well, that actually goes to the color picker. So the color picker I actually did probably close to a year ago and posted on my website, and that was used in the demo project that I used for progress rings. So I wanted to be able to show that you could change the color, and so I wanted that to be done, with the GUI. So I just plugged in my own color picker module, which, like I said, I published I think last March or April. But that was me I discovered a very similar bit of code that Steve had published, I don't know, probably a year before that on the Code Exchange. But it was graphics 1.0. And it did some other things that I didn't need it to do, so I stripped a little bit of functionality out. I put my own little visual spin on it, added alpha channel to it, but I can let Steve talk to his original code because it was very informative. I mean, a lot of it, particularly the math for calculating an RGB value based on where the reticule is, within the box, I lifted very generously from him.
Okay, well, let's come back to that then when we get to the color picker portion. Do you have plans to share your screen with us, or what are you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So if you would just show us so that people understand what we're talking about. Show us the progress ring, how it works, and
okay, this is my whole screen I'm showing. Is that all right? Is that showing up for everybody?
That's
you want to minimize your camera though when you're doing it.
Okay, great.
Always we have the recursive camera thing.
Okay, so let's see here. So I'm just going to fire up the simulator here.
I got a question for you when you're. I don't want to interrupt you while you're doing this. But...
Sure. So I'll have that there, and I'll bring up the module itself over here on the left. Nobody make fun of me. I use Text Wrangler. I like Text Wrangler.
Good thing you said not to be funny, because I was getting ready to.
Every 6 months I think, I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna try Sublime Text, and I just go, I'm used to it this way. I like it this way.
I used to still use Visual Studio, and they made fun of me on the show here.
So here's the sample project I made. So basically, it calls my progress ring file, creates a progress ring here, automatically sets it to 0. Now this is actually a slightly modified version of it. I'm going to put a new version up soon. What I realized was an undocumented feature was that a progress ring actually fires off or dispatches an event when it finishes a rotation. And I realized it was in there, but I didn't really document it. I also didn't fully build out the event table that it dispatches, so it was just dispatching a table with a name. So I added a target, so the standard sort of Corona event jargon. So event.target would reference the ring, and I added a position. So if you can, here, let me load up.
Well, I want to highlight while we're here that people can see from the code itself how clean it is, and then the example, of course, you've created a sampler that shows you all the different settings, so you can mess with things without having to go in and create a sample project over and over again, or fiddle with the code itself. But you've also gone to the lengths of documenting everything in the blog post, and actually in the file when you download the project and stuff, you have documentation from there. So
how to use.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way toward how much time and effort you spent to develop this out, and how easy it is for the end user to use. So.
That's the hope. I feel like, oh, geez, I put like 60 lines wrapped of stuff. I don't know if anybody ever reads it, but somebody did. You did, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth it. I mean, it's one of those things. I've seen lots of code where you go in and you're like, some of it's obviously self-explanatory. You can read it and you're like, okay, whatever. But then there's sometimes where you just don't know what they were thinking at the time, and you need some context. And you've definitely supplied more than enough context for that. So just wanted to point that out in case anybody's wondering, is this something that I could use in my project?
Thanks, I appreciate that. Basically the way it works is you require in my module, and then here's my main.lua, which actually is, this is sort of complex because it's, it has all of the sample is more complex in terms of its main.lua because it has, this little control panel for covering it. But, basically all you need to do is call, let's get to it in here. Basically, you say, whatever variable name you want to use equals progressRing.new, and that's it. You can call that with no parameters at all, and it will create a progress ring, but it sort of goes to my sort of default. Let's actually get rid of that, hit save, and so this is the default progress ring here. So, it's like a donut shape, so it's got a hole in it. It's set to, I think, 0.33 in terms of the depth. So there's a few I guess some of the parameters, let me see here. So when you're calling it, you can set what the radius is, and obviously that's just sort of how big you want your progress ring to be. A ring color, which takes sort of a standard RGBA table in terms of what you would like the ring, meaning the I guess you would say not the background. So what indicates how far along in your progress you are. A BG color, which is the background, and again that takes an alpha channel, so you can have a transparent one if you wish. Let me go ahead and add this back here so I can make these adjustments on the fly and we can see it. So if you wanted to have a 0 alpha channel background color, you could go here and you see that there. And by default, so the ring depth would be 0.33 like that. Ring depth we did. Stroke color, which is the sort of the stroke, the outline, which you can very much like a lot of Corona display objects, you can choose to have none at all, or you can set your width, and that's going to be both outside and inside if you have a ring depth less than 1. Let's see here. Counterclockwise is just a Boolean value, so if you set it to counterclockwise, it's going to run counterclockwise, obviously. Hide BG is a Boolean, so if you wanted to, let's say your background color, you set it to red and it has a full alpha value, and oh shoot, I want to do that, you can just change the hide background value. It's the same thing as having a 0 alpha, essentially. Time. So the time parameter is sort of the default time that you want it to take to go from 0% to 100%. And you can change that on the fly. So when you tell it you want to go somewhere, you can say go from 0 to 1 or 100% in 2 seconds, and it will do that. But if you neglect when calling that method to specify a time, it's going to calculate that based on how the initial time that you set up here. So it defaults to 10 seconds. But if you want, you can say it takes 10 seconds to do a full rotation. So if you tell it to just do a quarter rotation, it's going to calculate that time based on that. It's only going to take 2.5 seconds. Position is just the starting position. So it defaults to 0. You would have it with no progress made. But if you wanted to create one, let's say you were making a game, and this was a health bar for a character, and you already know that their health is, at 100% or at 50% before you create the ring. You can specify that start value. And bottom image and top image, which are, you can place an image underneath it if you wanted to, or place an image on top of it if you want to. And those just take either JPG or PNG files, and it works like a display new image rect. So if you are using dynamic image scaling at 2x, at 3x, what have you, it's going to automatically take that and load that in.